Live from McKinley Community Center in the Southeast Bronx Neighborhood Center. Welcome to the More for My Life live stream town hall meeting, hosted by Stepnick and Enjoy 7 Technologies. My name is Madison. Today our topic of discussion is gun violence and its effects on teens. Remember to ask questions on Twitter at More for My Life, the number 4. And at this time, we would like to welcome our esteemed panelists here in New York who will join this conversation. Sevnik Executive Director, Mr. Damian Kelly, Public Speaker, Peace Advocate, and Bashari YouTube Creator, Mr. James Baxter, Sonic McKinley After School Participant, Jalen, fellow Sevnik Clover Stepper, Nadia. We also would like to welcome our fellow youth advocates from New York City, Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, and LA. Houston will not be joining us today because they had a massive flood, but we wish them the best of luck. Welcome, Dallas. Welcome, New York.
Angels.
Hi.
They can introduce
Hi. Before we get into our testimonials, we would like to show our PSA.
I am the future and I want to live. I blame parents who don't lock their guns away. I blame politicians for not passing stronger gun laws. I blame negative music for glorifying guns. And most importantly, I blame you for not speaking out about gun violence in our community. Because enough is enough.
Seven children die from gun violence a day. It's a problem that affects everyone. Each of our panelists have a testimonial regarding gun violence in 2 minutes or less. Can each of you state how gun violence has affected you, and then we'll hear from our other cities. First, we will start with Mr. Damian Kelly.
over the hand, camera over the hand, camera over the hand.
Thank you and good afternoon. Gun violence affected me, unfortunately, later in my life. The first time I experienced gun violence was as a 19-year-old law student in Washington, D.C. I was walking on Columbia Road in the northwest section of D.C. With a classmate of mine. And I remember it like it was yesterday, and it was actually over 30 years ago. For some odd reason, this guy came up to him and thought he was somebody else and shot him squarely in the chest. The bullet, I remember, lodged right in his chest bone right here. What was so amazing to me, because I had only seen people shot on TV, they fall down, you don't really see blood gushing out. Unfortunately for Tony, the shot that he got caused massive damage. The heart was bleeding, the blood was pouring out, and I remember just standing there not knowing what to do. A very frightening experience. The young man who shot him, ran away. I was so nervous I couldn't even give a description. So that really affected me. The second time was a little bit more personal. A cousin of mine who was involved in things he shouldn't have been was shot. Thankfully, he wasn't killed, but both incidents really left a lasting impression on me and really showed the impact of violence. And it doesn't matter where you are. The first time it happened to me, as I said, I was a law student. I graduated from college, was achieving academically, and this happened to a good friend of mine. So it just goes to show that gun violence, or violence in particular, knows no race, no ethnicity, no income status, no educational status. But it's two events that really shaped my life and helped me become the person that I am today.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. And now we'll go to Jalen.
Um, gun violence has affected me in two instances. One instance was when I was walking down the block, like a couple blocks from home, and they started shooting, and it was me and my friend. And when they started shooting, we ran, but they was in the car, so they drove past us when they were shooting. So I got on the floor. And then the other instance was when I was asleep and it was a shootout, and one of the bullets went through my window, and it was lodged in the wall. And they later that day, the day after, they ended up arresting my cousin and said he was responsible for the bullet that went through my window.
Thank you, Jana, and now we will hear from Nadia.
um, Violence has had a few impacts on my life because there would be times that I'll be just walking home, normal day at school or after school, and I would have to call my mom because they started shooting, and I was scared that God forbid one day that I would get shot and my mom wouldn't have known what happened or where I was. But a personal issue that had affected me was because I was walking home. I was walking home with a friend on Washington Avenue, and they started shooting, and my friend was hit, and she didn't survive. We didn't know why. We didn't know who did it. So yeah.
Thank you, Nadia.
Hello, my name is Dominique from the Bronx, St. Joseph School. Alright, gun violence and gun abuse has been terrorizing our community and home. I feel personally affected by this situation. For instance, I remember a time where I was in a public place where shots were fired and I was feeling traumatized. As a reviewing old situations I have heard, I feel personally affected. This is an ongoing current issue in my community and home.
Good. Now have any one of the others have the lead hand come up and come a little closer to the camera. Come up to the closer to the camera. No. I don't want to hear from you. All right, let's start the session.
I don't think they're ready to start a discussion.
You can introduce yourself.
We have some. Hello, my name is Kiara from the Bronx and St. Joseph School, and we have some statistics about teen gun violence. Many children die a year from gun violence. In fact, it's 2,677 kids die from gun violence every day people die. 89 people die from gun violence a day. Suicide and homicide are the second and third leading causes of death among ages 15 to 19 in 2017. In 2014.
My name is Tanya Lisa from St. Joseph School in the Bronx, and some ways that teen gun violence affects our communities and our families is it makes some people afraid to go outside every single day, knowing that somebody can go up to them and put a gun to their head, and so it affects our communities, especially with our youth that goes to parties. We watched a survey, a video, and it had a survey of where almost half of the people say that they have experienced gun violence at parties, and so it's really unsafe for people to go outside sometimes, and it raises fear.
This time we would like to open the floor for questions. For those of you watching, if you have a question, please submit your question on any of our social media platforms by typing at More4mylife, the number 4mylife, or you can go to our website www.moreformylife.org. Our first question is from Sebnik Clover Stepper Lala.
Yes, absolutely. Tell them to get ready to start their own.
Thank you, my Asia. Hello, my name is Lala. This question is for Mr. Baxter. As someone who dealt with gun violence as a teen, what advice can you give our youth who think gun violence is the answer to their problem?
First thing I would say to teenagers who think that gun violence is the answer to a solution is that That's the wrong choice to make. Um, Anyone who chooses to pick up a gun has to realize that not only are you about to potentially take someone's life, but you also have to think about the consequences. That person should think about the consequences for their action as well, because nowadays law enforcement, they have a lot of different technologies that they use to capture individuals who use firearms, and so running is not an option at this point anymore. So folks will get caught for their actions. They will be prosecuted and sent to prison if they're found guilty. So as an alternative to using guns to solve a problem, I think that young people should be more willing to create a dialogue, which is to be able to talk to one another. Sometimes that may seem unrealistic at the time because everyone is angry and upset, but it's a better opportunity to find out how best to deal with each other so folks can stay alive and grow older, and so folks can stay free without going to prison.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter. Does anyone else from the panel want to add to this question? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tanya. In your opinion, does gun violence in the mass media make youth more likely to want to shoot a gun? And why?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. I believe that to a large degree, the media does play a role in the decision making of young people. Um, Media has a lot of influence over a lot of people, but especially the minds of young folks who are still easily led by some of the things that are more popular. And when you see these things take place on TV, um, you're so far removed from the reality of the situation that you may think that gun violence or using weapons to solve a problem will be that easy in real life, that there'll be no consequences. And I think that the media should be more responsible in the images that they put out there, especially on broadcast and television shows that may have a large viewership of young people.
I think media definitely has a role in affecting gun violence. If we look at New York City in particular, and this neighborhood in which we're located, Community Board 3, we're ranked number 46 in the city in acts of violence per the police. This is according to the police records. Communities such as Astoria, Sunnyside and Queens, Woodside, and even Throgsneck have higher incidents of violence than we do here in the Morrisania community. But the media never talks about the violence that occurs in those communities. They only talk about the violence that occurs in this community, even though we have less incidents of violence than those communities. So what happens is the media then begins to portray Morrisania Community Board 3 as a violent community. That rubs off on people. So people begin to believe that if I'm dealing in that community, I got to be violent because the people in that community is violent. The media plays a real strong role in controlling our mindset. And I think we have to, within ourselves as individuals, say that I'm not going to allow the media to dictate whether I react in a violent way or not. What I also find really interesting, and I'll end it here, is that even though this community is ranked 46 in acts of violence, it ranks number one in arrest and incarceration for acts of violence. So here we have less acts of violence than a community such as Sunnyside, yet we rank number one in the number of people who are incarcerated. So what does that mean? That this community is targeted by the criminal justice system to arrest and incarcerate individuals, which perpetuates the mindset of violence, which rubs off, unfortunately, on the young people in the community. And I think that's what we've got to do, use facts to get people to stop portraying us as a violent community.
Oh, hi, my name is Stacy. These influence of gun violence, they also come from video games like Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty. which like in those games you have to like shoot and like kill people, and also from shows like Empire, like how Lucius Lyon, how he got to the top, like how he successed in life, like he got abused by his mother, and also she had a gun to her head, and he also killed one of Cookie's closest family members. They also come from songs because, like Tupac, yes, most of us love him because of his talent, but also some of his songs were very violent, and they were against, well, most of his songs, they were about this violence on hurting people.
Hi, my name is Tamia, and I would like to talk about how gang affiliation is a part of the reason why there's gun violence. So many innocent bystanders are affected by gun violence in multiple neighborhoods, mainly because of their race. Like some like, because like main like some Caucasian people might have problems because they're like they're but anyways, to the next topic, sorry. So many people join gangs for a sense of family and because they don't have a lot of family at home, and many people find protection in guns, especially because they're in gangs and they know that another gang member or a gang is after them, and so they buy guns. And I would say that a solution to gun violence is having higher background checks and like really investigating the people before you rent a gun, because you don't know everybody's intentions if they're bad or good. So I would say that those are some solutions.
Hi, my name is Justin, and uh, the topic I'd like to introduce is about how family has an influence in gun violence, because in America, 1 out of 3 homes with kids have guns, and nearly 1.7 million children live in a home with unlocked, loaded guns. Talking to children about the danger of firearms is not enough. And I feel like how Tamia said about background checks being more intensified is another a solution, because million of guns are sold every year in no question acts transactions. Experts estimate that 40% of guns now sold in America are done so without a background check.
Um, Bringing up the subject about background checks, many people may say that there's a lot of teen gun violence, especially in places such as the projects and places where African Americans are mainly located. But gun violence is not defined by zip code. There can be a location where many rich Caucasian people live, and there are many teens there that are smoking and doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, shooting and inappropriate acts that they are not supposed to be doing. So it does not only happen in the ghetto or where many African American lives.
Before we go to another city, this is for everyone listening and watching. If there was 21 students in your classroom, how many days would it take before every student in your classroom is dead due to gun violence? No.
It'll take 3 days.
Yes, that's the answer. Not even a week. Chicago, what is your question?
Have you ever lost a friend to gun violence?
The last friend I heard that got shot, I ain't hear from his family in a minute. But the two that did die was one I knew since I was 3, and the other I knew since I was, I think 5. So both were childhood friends, and I didn't see them much. But when I did see them, it was like it was like they were family when I did, and when I lost them, it was weird because I'm not, used to not being around them. I don't know. Shut up.
Um,
I didn't see them.
how normal is it for you to hear about a death or any news about something involving gun
Well, I would usually hear about it or like maybe a few hours after because usually the news it'll be on the news before you know it. Or I might hear it through a family member, like I'll be the first person they call to let know what happened. Well, I would usually hear about it maybe a day after it happened or maybe a few
I hear about gun violence.
Um,
know it. Or I may hear it.
I usually hear about gun violence the very next day because every morning when I wake up, I watch the news. And without fail, just about every day, every morning, there's some report on the news about someone being shot at, or someone being arrested with a gun while committing a crime. And even if the gun is not fired during the commission of a crime, it still can be termed gun violence because the gun was the motivating factor or the tool used in order to commit the crime. So it's every day. I wake up in the morning and, like I said, I watch the news and there it is every day. And it's usually young folks that grow up in the communities that we're all familiar with. Crime still can be termed
Thank
gun
you,
violence.
Bella.
we have a question. Are there any local laws in place to protect school perimeters?
How do you feel about gun violence increasing in your community or in the communities?
Well, to me, gun violence increasing, I mean, it hurts because it's like that people it's like innocent people because a bullet never has a name on it. A bullet can hit anyone. It can hit an innocent person who could just be walking down the street, wrong place, wrong time. And it's more of the fact that not only does the innocent person suffer, but the family has to suffer too because grieving a loss isn't
Anybody
as
have a question?
easy as it sounds. You don't just get over a death or someone in your family getting shot. But you can hit an innocent person who could just be walking down the street, wrong place, right time. And it's
Um,
the fact that not only does the
gun violence raising in the community, it's not so much as a surprise because you kind of expect it to happen after a while, but that's no
How do
excuse
you plan to stop
because
gun
one
violence?
person who could just say, "Nah, I'm not gonna shoot him," could change a lot. Because the more people hear about, oh, this person got shot, the more somebody else want to go after the other person who shot the person, and then it's just a chain reaction. Everybody just getting shot, and it's a whole bunch of, I wouldn't say violence, but more of a feud between a certain group of people. It doesn't have to be a gang. It doesn't have to be a certain type of alliance. It could just be a group of people.
Does anyone have a question? Anyone else have a question?
How do you?
Oh,
My name is D. John Bryce. How do you? Huh? How do you plan to stop gun violence in your neighborhood?
Well, what we have been doing is stepping against gun violence. Since our community is like good, like known for gun violence, we step against it. And for when we started on Steppins, after a few months, we haven't had a gunshot or heard a gunshot. So we could get our word out about gun violence and like helping people to not not shoot or use violence or use their words.
Um, I mean, a suggestion is the people, the younger crowd of the neighborhood, whoever they look up to, we should talk to them, and hopefully, in their right mind, they'll go with what we're suggesting. Like, because usually, if it's gangs or anything, usually the feuds come to a stop and they team up against one thing, like Black Panthers or anything like that. So if that comes back, since everybody's so interested in guns and everything, if that's such a problem, why don't everybody just team up and deal with it?
What would you do if you had a strong? Hi, my name is Anastasia. What would you do if you had a chance to build stronger gun laws?
Everybody just team up and deal with it.
Then I would limit where they like ship the guns at because like it's not like they get it straight from the state. They get it from other states too that don't have the same strong laws, the same gun laws as us. So we could like the same laws that we have here, we could get it here all around the USA.
Does anyone else have a question?